Welcome back to Raid Guides in a Trenchcoat featuring Pandemonium 8 Savage, Hephaestus, Phase 2, Athena's Bitch.
I see now how I long for our embrace and my annihilation. My will is absolute.
Congratulations! If you're watching this video, then odds are your static has just cleared Snake 2 for the first time and you're getting a little ahead of yourself in preparing for your next session. I admire your gumption, but you and I both know that the first time was a fluke and you only progressed because a certain samurai somehow tripped and fell into facing the right direction. In any case, Phase 2 is a lot simpler than Phase 1 in the sense that the mechanics actually happen in the same order every time. No more dog first or snake first nonsense. Instead, it's just that each of these mechanics is a 4-part nightmare clusterfuck with heavy bleeds, while bombs are strapped to everyone's back that go off if the boss so much as sneezes in your general direction. That and there's so many different versions of each mechanic that it rivals Coca-Cola freestyle machines for the number of ways you can jettison yourself into cardiac arrest. So after button mashing your way to a 0.01% near miss with the enrage timer of Phase 1, let the adrenaline coast out of your system while you and your party spend the next 5 to 10 minutes of the session discussing how you're going to do the last 30 seconds of the fight when you get there 30 wipes from now. Who's stoking the fire, who's grabbing the ice, who's doming who, and then throw it all out the window when you realize a quarter of your party is going to get thrown into baby gale as you slap the first mechanic, nascent alignment. Now I recognize there's a whole bunch of mitigation planning and tank busting that happens now and at basically every other second that you aren't being visually assaulted by mechanics, but after Medica-2ing my way through Carbuncle, my static thought it best not to let me in on those details, so I won't be sharing them here. Nascent Alignment chooses 2 of your party members to get marked by some thick purple danger circles that will explode and kill everybody if their health ever hits 0, accompanied by an unmitigatable bleed that's going to do everything in its power to make sure that that happens. This pair of buddies will either be both DPS or both support, which you're going to want to make sure to take note of as soon as you can. Stack up to drop big orange puddles and you'll have to either spread or stack depending on which of these massive bars is filling faster, after which the boss will cleave half of the room and enact the other mechanic while the 2 Nascent Alignment players huddle up beneath his chin. After that resolves, group back up in the middle of the first 2 rows and get ready for Ice and Fire, which will again be notated by the 2 bars above the NA player's head. Depending on which buff goes first will tell you how many people need to be in each group. Ice has 3 letters, so 3 people have to soak each ice cast, and Fire spreads, so you'll have to spread out into 3 different groups of 2. DPS are in the east, except for when they're not. Support are in the west, except for when they're not. And then depending on if the NA players are DPS or support, the tanks or melees could end up really anywhere. There's also going to be all these little goons that tell you which row you have to make your patterns in, but if that's what's tripping you up, then I have really bad news. Take the first fire or ice, and then take the second fire or ice. Much like Snake 1, you're going to see and wipe to this mechanic a lot. The next mechanic, High Concept 1, has 72 different permutations that you could be asked to figure out, and that's 72 different permutations for one person. I could start trying to figure out exactly how many combinations that actually is across the party, but that sounds like a lot of work. If you do the math, comment below. I'd love to know and can't wait to see how many different answers there are. It'll be like those social media math problems where 40-year-olds call each other racial slurs for not doing PEMDAS correctly. So I arrived at 72 because there's 8 different buffs, times 3 puddle colors, times 3 puddle colors again. The 8 buffs are as follows: Short Alpha, Long Alpha, 5'11 Beta, 6 Foot Beta, TikTok Attention Span Gamma, Anime Episode Attention Span Gamma, Monogamy, and Cuckold. Because this mechanic is already confusing enough, there's no way in fuck I'm going to keep up with those meme names, so I ask that you make like flat earthers and use your imagination. The High Concept cast will put one of these buffs on you at random. If you have a short timer letter buff, then you go to a corner. If you have one of the stack buffs or the long timer letter buffs, then you stack in the northwest. Alpha with 2 stack, and the other 2 with 3 stack. Ignoring them, the 3 short timer players are going to explode into chemical compounds and then have to resolve the new neon rave puddles in the center of the arena. Depending on what flavor of radioactive you've become will dictate who you have to combine with to make the correct spirit animal to not get dropsied into oblivion. Lucky for you, there's a mnemonic device I've discovered that makes this part easier than putting circular pegs into square holes. I call it Brain Dead Fuck Off. Green and Gamma both start with G, so if the puddles are green, then Gamma fucks off. Blue and Beta both start with B, so if the puddles are blue, then Beta fucks off. And Alpha and Amethyst both start with A, so if the puddles are a beautifully luminous shade of subtly purple amethyst, then Alpha can fuck the fuck right off. You'll then have to stand in whichever half of the arena is not about to get the shit cleaved out of it, and then ready yourself to assume second position. If in the first phase you fused like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, then now it's your turn to sit over on the northwest bench where you can point and laugh at your fumbling teammates before they wipe you so far past oblivion you end up in Morrowind. If you are a long timer, then go into your respective corners to blow up into chemicals while being joined by your government-assigned new best friend. Whomever has the leftover chemical taint on them from the first catastrophic spill gets to go back to the corner where they started. Then, 2-stack and 3-stack go clockwise and counterclockwise respectively from the bench until they find an empty spot to nestle into, such that when the chemical train spooges all over Ohio again, there are 2 different people with each chemical buff. Then, you rinse and repeat brain-dead fuck off and combine to make enough buffs for the 4 puddles in the center. The secret sauce in the end is that depending on which buffs get used, you might be morally obligated to meme like you've just kissed in a game of Rocket League. Have an orange, see an orange, make an orange tree. Have a yellow, see a yellow, make a yellow PP. This makes your healers really happy to see, I promise. Limited licensing desolation is the intermission mechanic slotted into the middle of the fight so that there's just enough time in the encounter to bait you into using your second potted damage window early before you get the big dick damage buff. In this mechanic, everyone spreads to the sides of the room like it's a high school gymnasium and you're the asthmatic nerdy kids with poor social skills that have to figure out which world of hurt they're going to get drafted into. Line up on the sides with DPS in the east and support in the west, and wait for the big old blast from above to tell you it's your turn to be vertical goalie. As you get slapped, a meteor will appear. I advise you get close to it, shit your pants in a corner, and then step into the ring and prevent the ball from touching the floor. Nascent Alignment 2 is almost the exact same thing as Nascent Alignment 1, except for some reason the echo chamber of content creator advice breaks down and everyone argues over if you should leave the NA afflicted in their normal spread spots or quarantine them in the middle where their space cooties can't infect anybody else. In either case, 2 people are going to get NA buffs just like before, but if you're super unlucky then you'll get the rare Omicron variant, which makes all of your mechanics fire backwards. If you have this rare mutation, then hop up and down frantically like your mom just told you had ice cream at home and drove past the grocery store only for you to get home knowing damn well that the ice cream you had at home was just a bag of frozen peas. Spread and stack or stack and spread, and then fire and ice will play out exactly like before, where there's no conceivable world in which you wipe because everybody definitely did it correctly the first time, so why would they not do it correctly the second time? That's crazy. Now if you remember back to a few minutes ago where I said there were 72 combinations for High Concept 1, throw that out the window because in High Concept 2 there are actually only 26 combinations for how it can go down, if you don't include the player-driven choice of who's dragging which lost puppy out back of the barn. The buffs this time around are as follows. Short Alpha, Short Beta, Short Gamma, Long Alpha with social anxiety, Long Alpha with separation anxiety, Long Beta with social anxiety, etc, you get the point, and then there's 2 people who get nothing. The nothing players are the easiest because they're both going to crowd in with the Short Alpha in the northeast, drink deep of their caustic pool of alpha spittle, and then make out in a corner until those 2 horn dogs get big and red and angry. Those 2 big flippers then get to stay as far away from everyone else as they can while staying within the healer's reach while subsequently not getting slapped by half-room cleaves. The other short timers just behave like they did before and combine to make whichever puddle's color has appeared before going off to hang out within proper social distancing of the red dogs as they wait for their role in the second half. The long timers have it a bit rougher. Of the 3 long buffs, one is going to be tagged with the solo stanky and has to go stand on the 1 marker so as to not offend the noses of the rest of the raid team, while someone else gets the secret Yandere buff so that they can tell the 3rd guy, hey, come stand with me or you and everyone you love are gonna die a horrible chemical waste dump death. After this and all of the first puddles resolved, then the long buffs split off into their respective corners and follow this very simple pattern. Alpha mixes with Beta, and whoever was left over from the first puddle mixes with Gamma. Meanwhile, 4 little lost puppy dogs are going to show up on the sides of the arena looking to be taken for a walk before they piss all over the encounter you spent the past 8 minutes trying not to let go of in smoke. Figure out how to silently confer with your already spirit animal buff teammates which of the little rascals you're going to put on a leash and stand in front of them until they latch on and you can drag them off into a corner. Now, if you've done this correctly, you'll have 2 players with green buffs and 2 players with red buffs. In order to not wipe your party 30 seconds from now, you'll need to hold your burst window and have each of the green buffs go on a play date with one of the red buffs to make a bigger red buff. Once you have 4 big red buffs, make them combine to convert all of your teammates to the Church of Bird Jesus like they just got a religion bombed in the game of Civilization 5. And then, this is the part where he kills you. Time for your victory lap of damage feat, the easiest mechanic of both phases that people will still find a way to fuck up. The only thing you have to do, besides the mitting and healing that I once again know nothing about, is spread out and then soak towers. At the beginning of the fight, during the 5-minute long discussion, you determined which 4 of you would flex and daddy don your role partner. When the time is right, everyone is going to spread out and 4 people are going to get crushed by
the boulders!
If you didn't get crushed, then you soak the first set of towers based on your position. If you and your role partner both didn't get crushed, then Daddy Dom flexes off to their other tower while the sweet innocent baby sub swims along to take the same tower every time. Immediately afterwards, everyone who didn't grab one of the first towers chases off after the second towers. Repeat this again, then maybe throw out a Tactician or a Shield Zamba or whatever the fuck bars do for the really spicy hit. Then race his ego death to the finish line to get your well-earned loot rolls of 20 or lower on everything except the Orchestrion, which you've gotten 4 times already. And congrats! That's P8S. Good thing it's freshly obsolete. Go watch a real guide.